Hello everybody. On my recent videos, I have shown you how to start out doing server stuff local on your laptop using a Linux container, and then to use a similar Linux container on an actual physical device elsewhere in your home to have sort of a home cloud server. And this double clicks me into it. And there is a long-running script going here, although you can't see it initially. To see it, you use the screen program, GNU screen. And you use screen space -ls, and that shows you, it lists your screens. And this is one I had left running, having manually started it. You'll actually see how I manually started it when I connect into it. So you connect into one of these. If it says detached, you are welcome to attach to it. Screen -r for reattach pulse. And you can see this very uninteresting screen where I had CD'd into the repos pulse directory, and then I typed Python space pulse, and it's just been running. It has sent me one email since I started it, and that's all the output from the program there is. I can detach from this screen with Control-A, Control-D. That detaches it. When you detach like that, you can go back into it. Control-A-D, go back in. Control-A-D. So you see, long-running scripts can be left running forever. What does that script look like? Well, if we, from here, cd into pulse, ls, that file is this one here. I can vim pulse.py, and it's a basic little scheduling thing. The whole of the program is this big, right? That's the whole program there. And it's only, I changed the time here so that I can show you an email that was sent. But this is usually set for 10 a.m., which is really 6 a.m. Actually 10:30 a.m., which is really 6:30 a.m. Or just as I'm waking up, an email gets sent to me to remind me to do things. But this isn't very interesting to look at because every time you connect, here, I'll open another one over here. You can have as many terminals open to these things as you want. Screen reattach pulse. And so it's not very interesting to look at. It'd be nice to see stuff going on here. So I'm just going to edit back in this line that every 2 seconds runs job. And the job thing just prints the date. That's an F string, so it's formatting any programming commands inside of curly brackets. The programming command is datetime now, and so that forces it to be a string, a nice, easily readable datetime string. And there you have it. So to update this to be running the new one, all I have to do is Control-C out of it and then run it again. And you'll see it'll start showing the output. Did I save it? Maybe I didn't save it. It should have showed the output by then. Control-W, enter. Now it's saved. And there is our every 2 seconds a little date pulse. That's why I call it pulse. You can see that your home server has a pulse. And so I'm manually stopping and starting these things, and that should be able to be done a lot better. And these days, under Linux, it can and should be done better for these long-running server-like scripts you make. So you want to turn something into a server. Server sounds so intimidating. In addition to the fact that the hardware is of a sufficient quality level to just keep running, right? There's a hardware side to being a server. The other part of being a server, my control keys stopped working a little bit. Let's get that big again. All right, the other part of being a server is putting stuff in a busy loop. See, this while true is what makes it sit there and run all the time, because while true is always true, so it just keeps running forever, right? So long-running server script, that's the trick. Now, when you have a long-running server script, the better context to run it than to just, Python space name from inside a screen session you started manually is under systemd, and I'll show you that. So I'm going to exit out of this. And if I were to screen -ls, you would see that screen is gone now, no longer there. On every Linux system these days, there is a location cd/etc. Okay, so when you start with a slash, you're starting from root, and that's in common to everybody. See, with a tilde is there, like here, you're not really starting from root. Before I type this command, if I were to type pwd for print working directory, you can see even though it's showing tilde/repos, I'm in /home/ubuntu/repos. Tilde/ is a shortcut for home, right? So if I wanted to go one directory level up, I could go cd tilde, cd tilde /, and there you have it. I am one directory level up. So that's a way to sort of pop around. But even that one directory level up, I'm still in my home directory /home. If I were to cd to just / and then ls, you'll see I am no longer home. There's no longer the tilde in my prompt. And when I ls, it gives me all this operating system stuff. Stuff that's in common to everybody. If you wanted your own stuff, you'd start drilling down through the path of /user or /home. These two locations have stuff that's really yours from a user, account standpoint. So when I cd into /etc, I'm actually going into this one, which is in common to all the users, and permission is different, and so sudo is going to have to be used to edit anything in here. Inside of there, there's a whole lot of stuff, but there's one that we're particularly interested in. Let's do an ls sys asterisk, and it'll just list stuff with sys in the name. And here it is, system. See this one here, system. So Control L to clear, cd system. I actually know from experience we need to go into systemd. The next level down is system, cd system, and so there. I should probably have opened the video by going, okay, cd to /etc systemd system. This is so much the point of this video, because in here is a bunch of .service files. Actually, they look like .service files, but not one of them is a real file right here. So if we go ls-la for list all, you can see that most of them are directories with these .once extensions. Forget about them. You don't need to know about them right now. Some of the other ones are symbolic links. You can tell with the L over here at the beginning and this little arrow here. So a file that's really located one place is being mapped into this directory. So that doesn't stop us from creating a file here ourselves, but we do have to use sudo. Okay, so I will do a clear sudo vim pulse.service. That's the convention. .service extensions. This name I'm using at the beginning is completely arbitrary, but this will create a file and allow me to edit it because I started with sudo vim instead of just vim. There's nothing worse than forgetting to use sudo, finishing all your typing, and then realizing you can't save it. So anyway, in my daily journal, which I don't even have running yet because I did a restart, I have figured out the file that will work, and I'll not type it from scratch, but I'll grab it from my journal and then point out a few things about it. This is my process for starting my journal stuff. It does a pull from a number of different repos. And I usually, for many years, I kept one journal.md for life, but then when I started publishing so much online, I decided really I needed a separate journal for the website. And this is the whole file here. Right here. It's just put in my notes. So what I do is I turn off line wrapping. I'll unindent here. I could unindent anywhere, but I'll do it here. Now I can copy this and go over to here. I for insert mode, paste, save, oops, escape, W saves. If you forget to hit escape, you might be typing your commands into your document, one of the most common Vim mistakes. So I'll point a few things out here, including a new discovery I made, which was really important. So description is scheduling. You'll see that a lot when you check the status. Type equals forking, very important. Because we're using the screen program here, we have to use the forking word there. It's normally the word simple, but it has to fork off and break off a separate task, which is GNU screen. Restart always. Every 5 seconds it checks whether it restarts. It's going to run under the context of user, under the context of the Ubuntu group. And there is this environment variable right here. Very, very important. I had to figure that out and put it in here. It's not in most examples that are given of .service files. Now what it's doing is it's setting an environment variable. Environment equals, in quotes, screendir equals /home/ubuntu/screen. Now if we go back to here, I will recycle this screen by showing you my bash profile, cd tilde /, remember that's my home, vim.bash_profile, which is an invisible file sitting in there. And one of the lines in there is this right here, which is almost the same thing as I'm showing you there. Export screendir equals home.screen. This shows the GNU screen program where to find its housekeeping, where it does its temporary files and stuff. And that's very important, or else your screen-ls isn't going to work. That is the reason for this being present here. It's possible for this line to work and for you to not be able to access it with the screen program. So this makes sure you'll still be able to access it, given the fact that my bash profile changes the .screen, the screendir, so that I have, neither of these are actually in a screen, but when you're in a screen, see that you have some decoration down here telling you so. All right, home, setting the current working directory. That's like cding into a directory before you run it. And then this, which is the actual command, it's got a lot of goodies here. Exec start, user bin screen, that's the full path to screen, -dms, which says, run screen in daemon mode. It is Linux daemon aware, so we're making a daemon, so we use -d, m, uppercase s, then we give the screen a name, and then we give the path to the Python executable, and then we give the path to the Python code file, right? All right, and then it's for everybody. All right, so :WQ, write and quit. All right, so it's actually in there. You can see we've got a pulse service in there. That's awesome. All right, you have to enable it. And in the past, I have shown you a command called service, which is awesome. Service is easy to remember. It's got built-in documentation. You can go service -status all, but it's incomplete. This is an API that comes before systemd. It's a precursor to systemd. So while it has a neat API and makes certain things simple, like what you saw me do with turning on the SSH server so I could log into this and do this stuff in the first place, it's not the end of the story. The end of the story is we're using systemd, and to control systemd, you use a program called systemctl. Systemctl controls systemd. If you ever have trouble remembering it, think systemd, replace the D with CTL. You're controlling the daemon with a control program. All right. Systemctl, we're going to have to enable, because currently it's not enabled, pulse. But it's not going to work just like that. We're going to have to sudo it. Sudo systemctl enable pulse. All right. So it didn't complain. All right, so we can check its status, sudo systemctl status pulse. All right, so it's present, enabled, but it is not active. It's inactive. So how do you make it active? You go sudo systemctl. Oh, let's do a before and after. Since we have two screens going, I'll exit out of this one, clear it, and I'll do a screen -ls. No sockets found, right? That's before. Sudo systemctl start pulse. No complaints. We'll check its status again. Hey, look, its status is active and running. We'll go back to this screen. Screen ls. Oh, there's a screen there now. Screen reattach pulse. And there is the heartbeat. There's the every 2 seconds heartbeat. Now, I'll certainly reduce that from every 2 seconds to something else so that I can actually see the email without having to scroll up too far when I'm going in to diagnose this, right? Log files don't need every second or every 2 seconds log. They need events logged. But I'm doing it this way temporarily so that I can see something interesting when I log into these screen terminals, right? So now it starts to scroll. And because it's screen, you can't really scroll up. Your command line buffer doesn't work exactly the way it does before. So there's ways to do it. Control A, I think escape. Yeah, Control A and then escape lets you scroll up and down, goes through your command line buffer, just like you could if it wasn't through GNU Screen, except now an additional escape aborts you out of copy mode, and then you'll see the scrolling start to occur again. There you go. So GNU Screen has a number of user interface little weirdnesses, especially its Control A something else combinations. You just got to Google it and internalize these strange keyboard sequences that let you do stuff in GNU Screen, but it's profoundly powerful. And so one of the first demonstrations is, of course, you can close it. You can go back in. You can reattach to that screen, and there it is still running. It's not interruptible. Now, one of the other very interesting things here is that it's restarting with the server. It's a service. You don't have to type Python space pulse.py anymore. You can just restart the server. So how do you restart the server? Let's do it from this one. Clear. Now you'll remember both these screens that I'm showing you are connected to that same local cloud server running on a Linux container on my home NAS, right? So this and this are both SSH terminal logins to a home cloud server where I send myself an email once a day, right? That's all it does right now, but this is building towards stuff. It's my homunculus, it's my major domo, it's my robot working on my behalf 24/7. And as you follow my video series, I'm going to be using it to do more and more daily things, maybe a little with stocks, maybe a little with Google Photos. You know, you can integrate it with almost anything you want, because Python integrates, so because computers integrate with almost anything you want. What you're leaning on here is the primetime readiness of a bunch of tools that are now just working together, coming together magically for primetime readiness. This trick of using GNU Screen to monitor Linux daemon services without having to be some heavy-duty tech is new. I'm showing you stuff that's just become possible. I'm doing it because it is now more within my realm to do it than it used to be. So let's restart the server. Sudo reboot. That will make this terminal inoperable, but it also has made this terminal inoperable, right? It knows it's been closed. It can't keep doing that. The server's restarting. So we'll get rid of that, and we'll get rid of that, and we'll wait a few moments before we re-click this, because, you know, it's rebooting. Even though it's a container, the thing that's hosting the Linux container knows to keep it running. It's detecting it's rebooted, and it is restarting it. I don't even know if the hosting software needs to detect all that. That's probably just built into Linux itself. But anyway, in a moment, if you click it too soon, it won't let you log in. The port forwarding of the host machine is going to fail. But there, it rebooted. This is after a reboot. Screen, reattach, pulse, my friends. This is what makes a server a server. It's its unstoppability, right? You can power the machine off and keep it off, but a reboot won't stop it. Your long-running scripts keep running. You are no longer required to start them manually. What is starting a script manually? Well, here's two ways to do it. You can just cd into the folder that contains it, which in this case is pulse, and then you can do python pulse.py. That's one way of starting it. You can see the every 2-second countdown. Or before you do that, you can create a GNU screen session. Uppercase R for a new session, and we'll call it, temp screen. All right, so we're now in temp screen, SSH terminal session. It's a session. It's a terminal server that we're using here. You can tell it now because of this decoration that's down here. This decoration is here as a result of making screendir a location in my home directory, and I have a .screenrc config file there that defines this, right? And now I can again cd into pulse, and I can again python pulse.py, but having started it under the context of GNU screen, I can now just close out of that and know it's still running. In fact, I have two screens running. I have the Pulse one, which is started on startup of the machine as a service. You really can't tell the difference now between the one that started with the service and the one that I started manually, except for the fact there's a lower PID, a process ID, which means it ran sooner or before this other one. But I could screen -ls into the temp one. You can just use T if you want. No, you can't. Oh yeah, screen reattach. Temp, you can just use T if you want. There is the screen called temp. Now I can control AD out of it to keep it running but detached, and I can reattach to the screen called pulse. There's no, I guess in some cases you have to spell it out if there's any ambiguity at all. Oh, interesting. Screen reattach 94. Huh, interesting. Oh, because it's attached. See, when you see the word attached, you have to unattach it. If you really wanted to get back into that one now, you would do screen -detach pulse. And now that it's detached, you can reattach to it. And so there's the other instance of the pulse.py. Control AD. Now here's an interesting thing. I'm going to clear out screen ls, and we'll get rid of one of them. We'll get rid of temp screen. So screen, I'll actually go into it first with, then we'll Control C out of it. That first Control C interrupted the script, and then this exit closes the GNU screen. Now if we do screen ls, there's just the one. Now here's a fun trick, and another thing about it being a service. I'm glad I thought to get to this point, because in addition to starting on reboot, there are other benefits. Say something stops your service from running, like a Control C. So let's go into it. Screen, reattach, pulse, Control C. Now that terminated the screen all the way. Screen ls, it's back. Let's do it a little faster. Reattach to pulse, Control C, screen ls. It's not there, not there, still not there. Within 5 seconds, it's back, right? Services under systemd. It's just like WebDev, but more fundamental than WebDev. If you don't know this stuff, you don't even really know the context under which your server-like software is running. You're running nginx, you're running, NodeJS. It all runs under a context like this. Now I'm showing you an extra special trick. Usually these things are not run under GNU Screen, but so long as you run it under GNU Screen, you can monitor the console output. It's like looking at the log file as it's being generated. It's like still being logged in, and as if you're doing dev work, even though you're, running it as a service, a very reliable service. It's incredibly powerful. It's a way I'm switching over all, my work that should be going this way to be, and starting with my little homunculus major domo that's going to help me live a better life. So thanks for joining me. See you soon. Don't forget to subscribe.